Hi everybody, welcome back to class. My name is Professor Zenobia Bennefield, and today I'm going to be teaching about neurodiversity in the media. So the example that I'm going to pick is Atypical. It's a show on Netflix, 4 seasons, about Sam, an autistic teen who wants to date. And the show follows over the 4 seasons how his desire to date and the journey that he goes on impacts his family. It's a really interesting show. I enjoyed it mostly because I really like Michael Rappaport. But what was really interesting were the reviews for the show, and the reviews were mixed. People loved it. Neurotypical people who wrote the reviews suggested that the show helped them understand a world that they had never seen before. Autistic people liked it. I read reviews written by autistic or neurodivergent individuals that talked about the importance of neurodivergent characters and representation. There was also some very strong criticisms from the autistic community. One being that the main actor or the main character, Sam, is not played by an autistic actor, that the representation, although important, doesn't really consider nonverbal people who are neurodivergent or queer people or people of color. And then even some of the behavioral issues that Sam demonstrates over the 4 seasons, some of the problematic behavior is attributed to autism when it shouldn't be, and some behaviors that are related to autism are not made for that connection. There's some discrepancy in the presentation of what it means to be truly autistic. So the reviews are all over the place, and I share that because I think it's really important when we look at art or when we look at any social phenomenon to be willing to look at its strengths and weaknesses, right? To never present data or an idea or a concept as if it is inherently in one camp. I think life is a lot messier than that. But to also recognize that while something can be critiqued and also lauded as a really great contribution to society and to I guess our knowledge base, that even if it falls into camps, we can still learn something from it. And that's where I really want to spend most of this conversation in thinking, what do we learn from shows like Atypical? Now, if I was teaching in the classroom, this is when I would open up the conversation and I would call on people and ask people to share, and we'd have dialogue. But since that is not the case, and because I would look absolutely crazy trying to do that all here by myself, I'm going to use the reviews and share what I learned and what this show made me think about in terms of my own role in the classroom. So I'll share 3 things with you. The first is the importance of being a lifelong learner. So I want to share one review from Time magazine that was written by an autistic person, and it was a critique on the show. And I wanted to share something that they wrote. Here's the quote. So the writer of this review is an autistic person, and they write the following about Sam, the main character. He often appeared to me as more of a collection of stereotypes and repetitive physical movements than a person. Perhaps he would look like an autistic person from an outside perspective, but as an autistic person, I saw none of the complexity and internal life that I know exists in myself and my fellow autistic people, and am desperate to see more of on screen. And what that really communicated to me is the importance of being a lifelong learner. I think as teachers, it can be really easy to get comfortable in our knowledge base, and at a certain point feel like we know it all about our knowledge base. And while it's important to be an expert, it can be dangerous to be a know-it-all, because when you fail to recognize that there is more to learn, you stop growing and you stop being able to adequately care for your students. And so what this taught me is that I need to always be prepared and actively trying to learn about who my students are. And this sort of goes into my next point. Not only do I need to be willing to learn, but I need to be willing to let my students be the teachers and I need to be willing to allow them to be the authors of their own narratives. What this critique that I just shared with you highlighted for me was how often neurotypical people are doing the talking when it comes to neurodivergent people. And we see this often, right, where groups of color will say, we want to speak for us, we want to write our experiences, we hold unique knowledge about what it means to be us. And that's a really fair statement, right? I am the only person who can tell you what it's like to be Zenobia. Someone who's watching me may be able to give you their point of view, but I'm going to be the only person who can tell you exactly what's going on in my life. To that end, I need to trust my students to tell me about who they are, about what their life is like, about what it is that they need, about how they perceive me, and then I need to trust and non-judgmentally accept their narrative. When we acknowledge people's stories, when we hear people's stories, when we validate people's stories psychologically, and now we're getting into brain science, this does something to us. It helps us feel more worthy. It helps us feel more valuable. It increases our self-esteem. It helps trigger our autonomy. It helps us to be more actualized individuals. So not only as teachers do we have to be willing to continue to learn about our students, particularly students who have identities like, say, being neurodivergent, identities that we don't hold, and even if we do hold them, we have to be willing to learn, but we have to be willing to be taught by our kids. We have to allow them to tell us who they are, and then we have to accept what it is that we hear. That is so very, very important. And then finally, not just being a lifelong learner, not just allowing our students to be our teachers and accepting their narratives as truth, but really paying attention to social support. One of the things in Atypical and in the reviews that was highlighted was the importance of support. Now this could be physical support like accommodations in the classroom, or it could be social support like having not only family but mental health support in and outside of school. But these things are important. When I work with my teachers who have students who have special needs, so as an add-on, I will share that I just finished reading Jenifer Lewis's memoir. Jenifer Lewis is the actress on Blackish. She plays the grandmother, the mother to Andre. So she is bipolar. And in her memoir, she talks about what it is like to be her, right? So Jenifer Lewis would fall under the neurodivergent term. And her book, the way she talks about the way her mind works and who she is and why she reacts to things gave me in some ways hilarious and heartbreaking and eye-opening experience into what it meant for her to be a Black female neurodivergent, as she would say, superstar, right? And so I read that book. I recommend everybody read it if you are interested in neurodivergent stories written by neurodivergent people, right? And I think her memoir is just that. And she talks a lot about her mental health and about the way she views the world and about the way she interacts with the world and her mania and her depression and her addictions, and it's just phenomenal. And while her story most certainly does not at all I think speak to everybody's stories, I think it is important when you're talking about bipolar disorder to read it by someone who is bipolar. And so as I came out of Atypical and I read the Jenifer Lewis memoir, I thought to myself, wow, I have so much to learn. I'm so excited that I get to learn it. And I can't wait to take all of this information and put it into my classrooms. So I'll say that I would definitely recommend using clips from Atypical in your classrooms, K through 12, well, maybe not K through 12, definitely maybe like high school and in college. Jenifer Lewis's memoir, not safe for work, her memoir. Her memoir is deliciously vulgar, but I think that these are examples of art. These are examples of neurodivergence in our media that help us as educators, as students, right? We are student educators, or as professional learners. It helps us better understand the people in our rooms, and it helps us better understand their struggles, their needs, our roles, and what we can do to help. Because all of this information, all of it helps us create more equitable environments, curriculum, policies, practices that help kids thrive. And that's all deep down we want to do. So I highly recommend watching Atypical. It's totally bingeable, 4 seasons worth, and really good. Again, Michael Rappaport kills it. I would also highly recommend Jenifer Lewis's memoir. It is phenomenal. Although I tell you, I had the audiobook for it. I was listening to it aloud with my kid in the car, and I had to like hurry up and turn it off because, again, Jenifer Lewis has lived a full, good, racy life, y'all. So just a heads up warning there. But as you continue to read these stories and consume these stories, I hope that you do consume stories about neurodivergent individuals that is written by neurodivergent individuals. And then I hope that you accept those stories without judgment and with compassion, and that you continue to think, what lessons am I learning that can help me be a better educator, help me be a better policy writer, help me be a better attorney, help me be a better startup employee. And so yeah, I really enjoyed preparing for this lecture. I've learned a lot, I've been exposed to a lot, and it's increased my compassion, and I hope it does the same thing for you. So again, thank you so much for coming to learn with me. I really appreciate that you guys watch and learn, and more than watching these videos, I'm glad that you take what you learn and that you apply it into your students' lives. I think teachers are superheroes, and just the fact that you spent your time learning this is evidence of that. So thank you so much for what you do, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.